This is Mark Guerrero. Welcome to East L.A. Music Stories, episode 19. My guest is Jack D'Amore, or D'Amore, if you want to get really Italian about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll give you a thumbnail of his history. Grew up in the El Sereno district of East Los Angeles, went to Wilson High School. The first band of note that he was a member of was the Runabouts, which was managed by Eddie Torres, who managed the Midnighters, who were the most popular band in East L.A. at the time. And the lead singer of the Runabouts was Eddie Torres's brother. Do you remember his first name?
Bobby.
Bobby. Okay. Now you had, well, first of all, welcome, Jack. How are you?
Very good. How are you, Mark?
I'm doing really good. I'm feeling great. And I understand you live now in Florida.
St. Petersburg, Florida.
Boy, you keep moving farther and farther away. You were in Colorado, Arizona, Colorado. Pretty soon you'll be in Key West.
Tennessee. I was in Tennessee, and now we're on the west side of Florida, so it's not as far east as you could go yet.
Well, you're going to wind up in Key West, I'm sure. Anyway, so tell me about the Runabouts. Well, before we get to the Runabouts, let's get to your early musical thing. Now, you had a lot of relatives that were musicians, and you had an Uncle Don who was a drummer. That was really key to your life.
Right.
You started as a drummer.
My Uncle Don, he got me started on drums, and it was he was a great teacher, and my other uncle Danny was a saxophone player, bass player. So my dad was a pianist, and but just played by ear, the old Scott Joplin type playing, and had a piano at the house, and the family used to come over and play on Christmas and sing, and it was a great way to grow up. It really was.
Cool. Hey, by the way, I wanted to add to my intro. I should have mentioned in your intro because I like to give the scope of the person's career first. And so I just want to say that after the Runabouts, you were a member of the Emeralds, who were one of the best bands in East LA at the time. And you joined around 1970. And then I was in the Emeralds with you for a while there. And we'll talk about that. And then you wound up being... Now, you were a drummer in those bands, and you always, I guess, did you sing in those bands or just backgrounds, harmonies, or what was the deal?
In the Runabouts, it was always just, mostly backgrounds, but then I was featured on a couple of songs that they allowed me to sing on. And in the Emeralds, I guess I know it was backgrounds, and I don't know if I ever sang lead on anything in the Emeralds.
Yeah, I don't remember. Yeah, I just remember doing a lot of great harmony.
Yeah, it was all harmony,
But so then it was kind of a surprise even to me that, a couple of years later, you were the lead singer, frontman, not even playing drums, with a group called Rock Rose that did an album for Columbia Records. You can't get much bigger than that.
Well, actually, I'm going to correct you on that.
You played some drums too?
I was the drummer in the band, and I sang lead. There was Chris Barb sang lead, and Frank Demi, the bass player, who sang some lead songs, and I sang some lead behind the drums, and we all sang harmony.
I got it. So you sang lead on a certain number of songs on the album.
Yeah, the Rock Rose album, there was a 9-song album. I sang 6 of the lead songs.
Yeah, that's what confused me. But then further, as you went on, you did become a front man standing on, and there was another drummer.
Right. That was in the band. Actually, it was the Jack Street Band on RCA.
Right.
I was the lead singer, and Jimmy Monroe was the drummer, who ended up playing drums for Diamond Dave from Van Halen.
Right.
Yeah. And Steve Vai was the guitar player in that band. And our drummer, Jimmy, in Burlesque, was actually the Jack Street Band. He was a great drummer, and he went on to play with some other great people.
Okay. Well, it's this whole thing is Jack Street. Your name was changed for the record to Jack
Yeah,
Street. Okay, we'll
yeah,
talk about that later. But I wanted to give the panorama up front
sure.
so people will go, who is this guy?
Who
Let's
is
get
this?
back to the early parts and we'll get to more detail and all that. So in junior high school, you were in the Glee Club, and in the Glee Club with you was a person named Rick Chavez,
Mm-hmm.
who was a guitar player, and he went
Mm-hmm.
on to be a great guitar player, and he's got his own
Yeah,
story. Unfortunately, he passed away a few years ago.
yeah.
He was a good friend of both of ours. But
Mm-hmm.
you met him in class, and tell what happened in terms of how you got started with the band.
Well, we were sitting in Glee Club, and I was tapping on the table, and he said, "Hey, are you a drummer?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Well, I'm a guitar player. You want to start a band?" And I said, "Sure." I was 11 and he was 13.
And you had no
And
drums.
I had no drums. I actually had one snare drum. That was it. And I ended up getting a set eventually, bugged my dad to the point of, screaming and crying, and finally got a set. But we ended up, I don't even remember the first name of the band, uh, but we put a little band together, just him and I, and then started. We actually got a couple of other guys, another guitar player, and a guy named Joe, the bass, and ended up being called the Weeds.
The Weeds.
The Weeds, the
Mhm.
Weeds. Very controversial
Yeah. Oh, I get it. Yeah, just a little double
in the
meaning.
'60s. In the '60s, yeah. Could
Yeah.
you imagine? Could you imagine?
Yeah. Pretty cool for a bunch of little tiny kids.
Hmm.
So, so you wind up. How did you wind up getting in the Runabouts?
You know what, Mark? I'm not really sure. All of a sudden, I don't know. I mean, it's been so freaking long, but um, I don't even think I auditioned. I just someone said they needed a drummer, and I said I'm available, and we just started putting it together and started playing gigs. They had their musicians, guitar, bass, drums, keyboard, and they needed a drummer, and I was there.
Um, Now the Runabouts started kind of. I was looking at my flyers, and I got tons of them on my website, markguerrero.com.
Hmm.
And they started appearing, I think, around 1966. Playing the circuit, the big union, the little union, the Kennedy, and all that stuff. And
Montebello Ballroom,
what's that?
Montebello
Yeah,
Ballroom.
absolutely, yeah. So they were around from around 66 at least, and but you joined around 69,
Mhm.
and so you played all those venues with them.
Yeah, yeah, climbing up the stairs in the Montebello Ballroom.
Oh, with your drum set, yeah,
Oh God, it was a nightmare,
yeah.
especially when the Emeralds, who used to play up there,
With the
we used
B3.
to, used to carry that B3 up there, four people on that, just kind of bringing it up the stairs,
And the Leslie.
and the Leslie, and all the amps and the drums, and that was dedication.
Did you guys ever play the above stage? Remember they had a stage down below and they had a stage up on top. Do you remember that?
At the Montebello
Yeah.
Ballroom, we always played the one at the top of the
So
stairs.
that was even some more climbing.
Yeah, I never even knew of a stage below.
Oh yeah, there was, well, maybe by the time you were playing, but when I was playing there back, 65, 64, whatever,
Mhm.
there was a stage in the corner on the floor. You had to go up all these steps to get to the first floor, but then there was a stage up above that you
Wow.
had to go up more stairs. So
Oh
they,
God.
so they could have one band set up at the bottom, they'd play a set, the other guys on the top would be ready to start right away. And that way they'd keep the flow going with the two stages.
Huh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so you played the circuit with the Runabouts, and talk about the two guitar players that were really good in the band.
Uh, Ron and Dean Lemos. They were brothers, and they were incredible, incredible guitar players. Uh, just beyond belief. But Dean played bass because there was no bass player available. And Dean played bass and his brother Ronnie played guitar. And I can't remember the keyboard player, but and then there was Gilbert Priest was a trumpet player, and uh, had a tenor sax player. I can't remember his name, but yeah, it was a fun band. It really was. It was a fun band, and it was we played a lot of gigs, and it was always just it was just fun. It was no pressure, no, we barely got paid. It wasn't yeah, it wasn't that much money. I didn't make a living at it, so
But Ron Lemos, getting back to him, I mean, he
yeah.
went on to become really an academic. He wound up being the dean of some, department at Cal State Los Angeles, but he also put out a jazz book like on Hal Leonard, publishing, big prestigious publisher for music. He put out a jazz guitar book.
I didn't know that, and I can only imagine because his Howie Roberts was one of his favorite guitar players. I remember that name.
Mhm.
Just that, that jazz type of stuff. He loved it, and he ended up passing away a few years ago too.
Yes, I know.
It's sad, all these people that you played with are just
Yeah, it seems like
gone.
half of our friends are gone from the
Uh,
this music scene. So, any other particular memories of the runabouts you want to mention? Any particular gigs or experiences you can remember?
well, we went on that little mini tour with Renee and Renee, and
Oh, that's important. So, talk
and
about that.
we were the I don't know how it happened. I must have been through Eddie Torres, but uh, we were the backup band for the Shirelles, for the Drifters, for the Coasters, for all these bands. I mean, we went on a rock and roll show, and we just set up. And Ronnie and Dean were such great players; they could play anything, and we just played. And I just played along on the drums, and we backed up all those old groups in a rock and roll show. They just kept on coming on stage and saying goodbye. Another one would come up, say goodbye, play their songs, their hits, and they'd get off. And that was an incredible learning experience for me because all those songs I still have in my head and I could play them on a snap of a finger.
So, tell me about what do you remember about Renee and Renee? Because Renee is still a good friend of mine, the original Renee Ornelas, who's been Renee and Renee till this day. He calls himself Renee now, so he's just solo, but he's Renee. But do you remember much about them?
No, other than the song, I don't even remember the song, but I do remember.
Angelito.
I remember we flew from one destination to another on a little paper cup airplane,
Oh my God.
and everybody was frightened to death. But we ended up landing, and I got out of the plane and kissed the floor. And one of those, either Renee or Renee, started commenting and laughing.
Oh, really?
It was a rough flight. It was a rough flight, And all I thought about was, Buddy Holly, and
Yeah.
I'm still here.
Yeah. No, I refuse to get on really small planes. I think the smallest one I was on was like a 12-seater, and it felt like I was in an automobile in the sky. It was rattling.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah,
no way.
that
Uh,
happened.
so after the runabouts, how did you wind up in the Emeralds?
Uh,
Or wait a minute, wasn't there another band in between, the Royal Checkmates, or where did they fit
yeah,
in?
the Royal Checkmates was another one of those East Los Angeles bands, a big 10-piece band. It had a 5-piece brass section, keyboard, guitar, drums, bass. It was literally a 10-piece band. That's because of the 5-piece brass section. But we played all of those shows. The Union Hall, Big Union, Small Union, all the again the Montebello Ballroom, and it was a great band. It really was a great band. And but after that, I don't remember what happened with. I think I met Bones, and I don't know how and where I met
Bones, Sammy Ramos.
Sammy Ramos. Yeah, I met him, and then I guess they saw. Wait a minute. I don't know where they saw me playing drums. Probably in the Runabouts or something. And then they, I guess Bones asked me to be in the band. I'm sure, it's been so long, man.
Yeah.
I mean,
Was Bones
how long
Bones
ago?
was in the Royal Checkmates too?
No,
Oh, okay.
no,
Well, you're talking about not the Emeralds.
yeah, the Emeralds.
So
I
so
met,
you played with the Checkmates for a while, and then you
yeah,
joined the Emeralds.
it must have been that
Yeah.
that way. Yeah,
Yeah, at our age, it's hard to remember everything, and especially chronologically, it's like
right.
I think I forgot what I had for breakfast this morning already. So we're talking about 50, 60 years ago.
I know. Well,
So
it is true, at least 55 years ago for me. And that's,
yeah.
I can't even believe I'm remembering the names of the bands.
So let's talk about the Emeralds now. The Emeralds were, they were around since God, and as long as I can remember, maybe 64. But the Emeralds always had a great reputation, mainly because of the leader, Anthony Beret,
Right.
guitarist, keyboardist, vocalist. But he would whip his bands into shape to where they learned the songs correctly. They'd have the right chords, they'd have the right harmonies. And what he went further than most bands is he also went for the sound of the record. He wanted the organ to sound like the organ on the record, the guitar to sound like the guitar on the record. So they sounded like the record, and everything was done properly. And so they were known for that already throughout the years.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, by the time 1970 rolled around and he had you and Sammy Ramos, Bones, and and Ray Nunez on bass, it was evolved, and it was even more talented musicians, and it was a really great band.
Well, you know what, they like you said, they went beyond the chords. It was the sound, totals, every guitar sound, every keyboard sound, every vocal sound. It had to be perfect, and it was so amazing that the following that band had was unbelievable. I mean, people loved them. It was just like sitting in the concert of all the bands that we were copying, basically. And it was a copy band, but man, it was the ultimate. Like, there's bands now that are copy bands that sound like the
tribute bands, the tribute bands.
Tribute bands. The Emeralds were the ultimate tribute band. They did, I mean, but really well done. And because of the manager, Ballesteros, he bought the most incredible equipment, or paid and financed all the equipment, the speakers, the keyboard. It made that band even more original sounding. I mean, it was just one thing they didn't do is play original music. That was the only fault that they never ever, that I can imagine, know of, that they never wrote any of their own stuff.
Well, I think remember when, that's another thing we'll get into more. When you guys recorded at Independent Studios with Art Brambilla, I think you were the drummer. I'm not sure, but there was a couple of original. They were all original songs that
I can't remember those. I think Anthony might have written a couple.
Yeah, that was at the end, though.
Yeah,
yeah.
But they never went for the I want to become my own thing, as long as I was in the band.
But the fact that they were so good at it, that's one of the reasons why mostly everybody remembers them. If you talk to anybody who was there as a musician or as an audience member, or they remember the Emeralds. They're thought of highly, and rightfully so. So tell me a little bit about that Emeralds that had you, Ray Nunez on bass, Anthony on keyboard and guitar, and Bones Ramos, because a few months later I took Bones's place, and we'll talk about that next. But do you have any memories of that first?
I remember that when we had rehearsals the garage under Anthony's apartment in the alley
Montebello.
in East Los Angeles or
Yeah.
wherever it was. Yeah. And I can't even imagine to this day the volume that we used to play in that little room that we didn't get busted and constantly bitched at, because the music was probably so amazing
Yeah.
that people were enjoying it.
Yeah.
You know, we didn't play late at night, you know, because Anthony had to get back up, I'm sure, to his family, and
He was
everybody.
already married. He was already married very, very young.
Yeah, right.
Let's get back to Ballesteros. I wanted to say something about him. Was the manager of the Emeralds Ray? Was his name Ray?
Ray Ballesteros. Yeah.
Was it? Yeah. Well, one of his sons was Ray Ballesteros Jr., who played sax with the Emeralds early on, and then his other son, Aaron Ballesteros, was a drummer early on.
Right.
And my God, he was one of the great drummers to ever come out of East L.A. Wound up playing with the Midnighters for years, with Tierra for years. Incredible drummer. What do you think about Aaron?
What's happening with Aaron?
He passed away, man.
Oh, no.
He passed away a couple of years ago.
Really?
Yeah.
See, man,
Well, you've been away.
knock on wood.
Yeah, man. You can probably acknowledge he was a pretty good drummer, huh?
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
He was a great drummer. You know, he was definitely technical. I was more of a meat and potatoes,
Yeah, man.
which I think that Bones and Anthony really liked. And you know, Aaron, you know, God bless him, was a great technical, an amazing drummer. I remember he used to tell me to do rudiments on a bottle cap to get that really tight feel, you know. Yeah, he was just a great drummer.
Well, you're probably one of those drummers, natural. Like, in other words, there are drummers that were trained and had a lot of lessons, and I would assume Aaron was one of those. You're more of a guy like Levon Helm or Ringo, or guys that just play from the heart. And Ernie, my drummer for all through the 60s into the 70s, total head heart drummer. And you know, people love those kind of drummers, man, too.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just like, again, meat and potatoes. There's no frills, you know, no solos. I mean, in fact, no matter what band I'm jamming with, when they go, give it to the drummer, I say, I don't play solos. You know, I don't wash windows, you know. So.
Well, I can say, having played with you many times, I think you're a great drummer, and I mean, you were right on in time, but also your fills. I mean, I can't even say enough about how great it was.
Thanks, Mark.
So, and now speaking back of the Ray Nunez, Bones, Emeralds that we talked about early 70s.
Right.
Ray Nunez was a really good bass player, could sing harmony.
Yeah.
He also passed away a few years ago, maybe 5 years ago.
Yeah.
He had moved out here to Palm Springs, and yeah. So yeah, I mean, you know, so many of our peers have gone to the other side, as they say.
Yeah.
So anyway, I don't know how it happened, but Bones left the group, and Anthony invited me in, and boy, did I love it. I was with the band about 6 months, and we played a ton of gigs. I had the calendar recently, and I hope I can find it again, but you know, we played just about every weekend, every Friday, Saturday for the 6 months. And I had a ball because the band was so great. And I remember some of the songs that we did that I loved doing, you know, things that other bands weren't doing.
Right.
We did. My favorite was She Said by the Beatles from the Revolver album. Nobody played that. And that song has all these time changes and missing bars. She said, you don't understand what I said. I said, no, 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 you're wrong. When I was a boy, da 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 da. Everything was right. Da 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 da. Everything was right. She said, I mean, just crazy time. But we nailed it. And I must say, it sounded just like the record. And I sang lead on it, and it was a blast.
Yeah, it's just, that's what Anthony did, you guys did, we all did, we just made it sound so much like the actual record.
Yeah. And other songs we did a great version of Woodstock by Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. we
Yeah.
did a great Emmett Rhodes song, "Down with My Face to the Floor," from his solo album. And Emmett Rhodes is somebody who's kind of forgotten to rock history, but he was an extremely talented
Palace Guard. Palace Guard.
singer-songwriter. Pardon me?
The Palace Guard.
He started in the Palace Guard, and then he had the merry-go-round. And the merry-go-round had a couple of hits. They had one called "Live" that the Bangles later covered, and in the 80s. And he had a song called "Lovely Woman" that had an orchestra behind it. You know, it was a great song. "You're a very lovely woman, but I think I better turn you down this time." And then he did this solo album, and he was very Beatlesque. His idols were the Beatles.
Right.
In his
Totally.
style, it sounded just like the Beatles. And on his solo album, like McCartney, he played all the instruments, including drums. He played everything, sang everything.
Exactly.
And it was a great album. I still like it to this day. And but for some reason, he never quite made it big, you know, and he made 2 or 3 solo albums, and then he wound up being a producer and an engineer for many years, and then he disappeared. And then, I don't know if you know this, but got about, I don't know, within the last 10 years, these people got him and produced an album with him. And my God, it's like Brian Wilson quality of songwriting. And it's an incredible album they put out within the last maybe even 5 years. And he passed away a few years ago.
Oh,
but we did that song to perfection also. And so we did some great stuff.
Remember the Hullabaloo?
Yeah.
Right. I remember they must have played there a lot.
The merry-go-round used to play at the Hullabaloo on Sunset Street.
Right. Because I remember the back door, the pull-up door, which is something strange to remember. The back pull-up door, you know, where you would bring the equipment in the back on the outside of the door, in huge letters, it said Emmett.
Wow.
Painted, graffitied on the door. And it must have been from some girls or somebody that loved him. They really loved him.
He was great, and he just never got his due. That second version of the Emeralds that we're talking about, we should mention the bass player was Johnny Joe Ramos, who had been in the Counts and some other bands, and he was a great bass player with a great sound. Did he sing harmony too? I don't remember.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So it was a hell of a band.
Yeah, it was, and still is in many ways. You know, you think about it in the back of your mind, it'll always remain a great band.
And my big memory was when we played at the East L.A. rock and roll show, you know, in 1971. Oh, I forgot to mention. So on that rock and roll show, I can remember the set list. I sang and played lead on Neil Young's Ohio, you know, Four Dead in Ohio, Southern Man. And then we did, I think we did Woodstock. We did She Said, She Said. We did No Time by the Guess Who. And then I got off the stage, and you guys as a trio did some Grand Funk Railroad stuff.
Yeah, Bones singing the lead.
No, Bones wasn't there. That was when I was in.
Well,
Anthony must have been. Anthony had to be singing.
He must have sang the lead.
Yeah, I think he took over the vocals on that.
Wow.
But anyway, you guys sounded like Grand Funk. I mean, it was like you could morph into, we could morph into anything, and you guys even morphed into Grand Funk.
Right.
So unfortunately, we weren't recorded. I wish I had that recording.
At that show, right.
Yeah.
That's too bad.
So anyway, I played with the group about 6 months. I loved it. It was a great band. I really was happy to be in it. But I had to leave because right at that time I got signed by Lou Adler, you know, rock and roll producer who had produced the Mamas and the Papas and Carole King. And I started recording, and I had to leave the group. And I wish I hadn't, you know, I could have probably done both, but at the time it seemed like I better concentrate all on this stuff.
Sure.
But I left, and you guys went on as a trio for a while. And then that Art Brambilla thing happened, and I don't remember the details on. I think Bones came back for that. Do you remember if you were on that? Were you on those recording sessions?
You know what, Mark? I don't know. Can't remember. I don't know exactly what happened. I know that Bones, Ray, me, Anthony, and Joy Bonner, we went to Hawaii for a month.
Oh yeah.
And played, you know, the same quality of incredible covers, but in Hawaii, and I'm sure that it was Anthony probably told you a lot about that show and that time, because I just personally didn't want to be there at all, but I proved that being an asshole in so many ways.
Now, weren't you on the Big Island too? I mean, you're on the Big Island.
The Big Island,
Hawaii. Kona, yeah. Well, the thing that Anthony told me that the only thing I'll share that made me laugh because it was so Jack was like, he says, yeah, he goes, Jack just got sick of Paradise. And he goes, Jack said, man, I need some concrete. He wanted to be back in the city.
I probably said that. Yeah. Yeah. I guess, which is funny that the humidity it got to me at some point, but really what got to me was the fact that we were on a little island and in the middle of the ocean, and I saw a newscast from my room and saw how small the Hawaiian Islands were in the middle of the ocean and how big United States was. And I says, I got to get back to the mainland.
You felt you might get swallowed up by the sea or something?
Something. I mean, it was definitely a paranoid thing,
Yeah.
But yeah, it was still a great band.
Oh yeah.
Talking about bands,
Yeah, I have great memories of that. So tell me how Rock Rose started, and that's the one that started? They were the Frisco Kids.
Yeah. I was playing with Shine On at Big Daddy's with Rick and Kenny Lindsay and
Rick Chavez.
Yeah, Rick and Chris Barr knew Rick, and they came in to Chris Barr, who was ended up being in Rock Rose. He knew Rick, and they would come to the show because they were going to lose their drummer. Their band, which was the Frisco Kids, they were going to lose their drummer for some reason or other. So they came in and they saw me, and they wanted to know if I wanted to join the band. And they said, I was making at the time $250 a week at Big Daddy's, which is a shitload of money
at that time.
Now, I mean, but they told me, you're not going to make any money. You're going to have to starve, but we want to put records out, So I told Rick and the guys, I'm going to have to quit, and they both told me, Rick and Kenny said, well, good luck, and that was it. And I joined the Frisco Kids, and we went up to Tahoe and played a bunch of gigs for barely nothing, and lived the rough life. And then it turned into Rock Rose, put out an album for Columbia that, hit the airwaves at the worst time in the world because nothing was really happening then. And from then on, that deteriorated. And that was with Dennis Lambert and Brian Potter.
Right. Describe about who they are.
Dennis Lambert and Brian Potter, they're producers, writers, and they've had hit songs all the way from Do the Freddy with Freddie and the Dreamers, all the way to recent We Built This City with the Starship, but Brian Potter wasn't part of that. But they Dennis has been successful for many, many years.
Now, Brian Potter and Dennis Lambert, they wrote Ain't No Woman Like the One I Got, Temptations, Don't Pull Your Love, Hamilton, Joe, Frank, and Reynolds, One Tin Soldier. And at one time, I think they had something like 5 hits at the same time on the charts. They were just really hot.
Yeah, they were very successful. I remember Lambert telling me one time that he went to pay his taxes. And he didn't have to tell me this, but he just started. We're just talking around a kitchen table, and he says, "You know, Jack, my hand was shaking one time when I had to pay my taxes." And I says, "What do you mean?" He goes, "I was writing a check for $500,000." He said
Yeah,
his hand was shaking.
yeah. And after he and Potter broke up or whatever, he went on to write Night Shift for the Commodores, Built the
Yeah,
City. And he
yeah,
produced, as a producer, he produced Baby Come Back by Player,
yeah,
Rhinestone Cowboy by Glenn Campbell. So this guy was like top of the heap. And he
yeah,
produced your group Rock Rose,
right. And then he produced my
your solo.
solo,
Yeah,
Jack Street, with RCA.
right. Which we'll
You
get
know,
into in a minute. I just wanted to finish on Rock Rose. So on Rock
sure,
Rose, as you said, you were drummer and you sang a lot of the leads.
right.
And do you want to mention some of the guys in the Rock Rose band, or did you already mention them?
Frank Demi bass, Chris Barr guitar, keyboards, Carl Johnson guitar, Frank Demi on bass. And we all sang and played. And it was a great band. It was fun. It was very, very, very polished, and we played a lot of gigs, and
Well, in
that's
fact,
why it was
let me show the album.
so polished.
Now, here's the album, Rock Rose, on Columbia Records, no less.
Yeah, that's it.
And
Yeah, and
didn't you
I
have something to do with the design of the cover?
yeah I drew up the cover, and they gave it to John Van Hammersveld to paint the cover.
And there's Jack right there. You got a leopard skin thing going on.
Yeah, that's me. Hey, I have long dark hair
Wow, no beard.
and no beard. Yeah, and tight
Amazing.
pants.
So Columbia did not promote it, or what happened with it?
Well, they did the best they can, but I guess they just they let it peter out. It was doing very well in Japan. Had a great promotional thing in Japan, but it ended up just fizzling out, and that really kind of broke up the band. I mean, Chris was just distraught, because he worked so hard to make it happen, and I feel bad for it because you know, but it ends up that things happen for a reason. What are you gonna
Yeah,
say?
I've come to that, definitely.
Yeah,
Um,
everything happens for a
so
reason.
so before we get on to your solo album, now when did you play with, didn't you play with Anthony's other band, his 70s band, Energive, for a while?
That was that the band that we went to? I thought it was the band that we went to Hawaii with.
Maybe that
That
was
was the
Energive.
name.
Yeah,
That was the name.
Energive. And it was Mike O'Brien on keyboards at that time, or do you remember?
I'm not remembering, but
Okay. Right. Okay. So that was Energive. I remember Energive, going to see them quite a few times. They were really good band.
yeah, Joy
Into the
was a
80s. Into the
great singer. She
Oh
was a
yeah.
great singer.
Yeah. So now you're already friends with Dennis Lambert, and he knows you're a good singer. So how did he come about offering you a solo album, or how did that happen?
Through Paul Palmer, which was the manager of
Hmm.
Rock Rose. Rock Rose, ended the relationship with Paul, and Paul continued along with me, and he uh, uh, bugged Lambert until Lambert agreed, and Dennis flew me out to New York. He was in New York, and he flew me out to New York to write the rest of the album. And I had a few ideas and some beginning of some songs, and I went out there, and we were at his friend's house. He was staying with his friend, and we were at his friend's house, who stayed in the basement and wrote the rest of the album, all the rest of the songs in the basement of his friend's house. And that was quite an experience, getting flown out there, big shot being picked up with a limousine and
Yeah,
all
this
that stuff.
kid from El Sereno, you know.
El Sereno with but yeah, and that was a lot of fun, and we wrote some really great stuff, and ended up being a really great album, produced by Lambert, engineered by Tony Peluso, who
Yeah, we got to talk about Tony too. Let me see
yeah.
some. Now, as far as the songwriting, did Dennis co-write some of them with you, or no?
Oh, absolutely. He
And
wrote,
did you have any other co-writers? Didn't you have some other co-writers? Maybe some of the Rock Rose guys, because weren't they on the album?
yes, actually, Carl Johnson wrote a couple, 3 songs with me that got on that Jack Street album. And then there was a one song by Burt Bacharach,
Baby, it's you. Baby,
Yeah,
it's you. Yeah.
and Burt just passed away, 94
Yes.
years old.
Yes.
And then there was also a cover that was really a great song, but I don't remember who it was, but it was a cool song. So there was one cover, and Baby It's You, 2 covers, and then the rest of the songs Dennis and I wrote.
Right.
Oh, and then one I wrote by myself, Choosy.
Okay. Well, let's talk about some of the songs here, because here is the album. And you were so. Oh, how did Jack Street come about? Was it Dennis's idea to change your name?
Yeah, they well, no, the label thought that the band appeared and the songs appeared to be too hardcore to have Jack D'Amore
Right.
as a name. So they
Right.
wanted to rough it up a little bit.
Yeah.
So they came up with that name, Jack Street, which to this day I'll regret.
Yeah. Well, here's the album. And this is how you look then. Talking about early
There it
80s.
is. There it is. Yeah, some more dark hair.
Youth.
Youth.
Where does it go?
Right. And
And here's the band.
That was the band. That's Burlesque. Yeah, that was
And your back, your back's to your butt is showing.
Yeah. Yeah. And because
It's
I was the whole idea was to show the t-shirt
Oh,
with Jack Street on it,
I got it.
But and I didn't mind.
And this was on the inner sleeve.
Yeah.
And the
That,
lyrics.
you know what? Lambert thought that should have been the outer picture. I remember.
I don't know. I like the one that's on the front myself. Okay, so let's talk about a couple of the songs that I love. Okay, one of them that I love is Jupiter's Theme, and I
Yeah.
play that on my breaks on my gig to this day, and I hear it every night just about.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's on there every night. I just love this first verse, the idea of it. And it's written by you and Carl Johnson.
Yeah.
Scanning the sky, my new distraction. Saturn is so hard to find. Venus is bright, Mercury's moody, can't get you out of my mind. And I miss you, that's all I know. And I'm not afraid to say that I need the one who once needed me. Please come back.
Yeah.
My telescope's new, but my interest is fading. Guess I'm just not all that smart. I can wash out the cup, but I can't find the coffee, and I don't know where you put my heart.
Yeah.
So there's some cool lyrics in this song.
Yeah, that's Carl. He was a great lyricist and still is. Yeah. And the chorus lyric I wrote, and he
That's a
wrote,
beautiful. Let me read that one. The chorus that you wrote. Jupiter's theme, like a little glass island in the sky, making rings out of clouds, stealing light from the sun. Such a lonely one.
Yeah, that's
All right.
Carl. I wrote the
Thanks.
melody. I wrote all the chords in the melody.
Beautiful
And,
song. Beautiful.
Yeah,
song.
and he's such a beautiful lyricist.
Probably my favorite is Annie.
Mhm.
And that one you wrote with it says J.C. Crowley. Who is that?
Yeah.
Who's that?
He played guitar for Player.
Oh, from Player, Baby Come Back.
Yeah.
Okay. So I sang harmony on this one, as you might recall.
I remember that.
But I love the song. And
Yeah.
I think Annie, wasn't that your mom's name?
Yes.
And you were
Yes.
actually writing about your mom, but it sounds like you're writing about a girlfriend.
Well, I wrote it because of my mom and dad used to argue a lot.
Mhm.
And that whole idea, I don't want to fight no more, Annie.
Yeah.
Which it just, it it's a great tune, and I play it now almost every day still on my keyboard.
Wow.
And Jupiter's just to stay up on it.
Yeah, let me get something else here. And let's not forget about Tony Peluso. In fact, let's do that before we get to the next thing.
Sure.
So Tony Peluso was the engineer. Now, how did he get involved? He wasn't involved with Rock Rose, was he?
No.
Okay, how did he become the engineer for it?
He became the engineer. I guess Lambert worked with him on something else or something, but for the Rock Rose album was Matt Hyde, who was an incredible engineer.
I remember him.
And but when we did the Jack Street band with Annie on it, Dennis went with another engineer, and that was Tony Peluso. And Tony was a great engineer.
Oh, tell me, I got to tell a little synopsis of who Tony Peluso was.
Mm-hmm.
In 1968, my band, Ernie Hernandez, Rick Rosas, and Tony Rodas was on keyboard, and me. And we played at Gazzari's on the Sunset Strip, and for a couple of weeks. And Tony Peluso was the leader of the house band there. They were called the Abstracts. And they had an album out, and he was really talented. I remember at the time, I was 18, and just checking him out and go, wow, this guy's a great guitar player. He's a good singer, just a really talented musician. So that's when I first heard of him. So now fast forward to the early 80s, I run into him again. He's your engineer. And anyway, after that, he wound up engineering some of my stuff, including my first version of On the Boulevard, Mijita, Pre-Columbian Dream, and Zoot Suit. He engineered those. And then he took me into the studio, into Devonshire in the Valley. He got some time somehow. And we did 3 more of my songs that he engineered. And he and Paul Palmer, who you said managed Rock Rose, tried to get me a record deal with that. And they succeeded in getting interest at Capitol Records and Atlantic Records. And my big-time lawyer blew both deals out of the water. And anyway, that's a whole other story. But Tony Peluso, great engineer, just a great engineer. And I don't even know what's happened to him. Do you know? I've been trying to find him online.
He's gone. He died.
Did he? Do you know when he passed?
It was a while back.
But
a few years back.
But years later, after I worked with him, I mean, 20 years later, I was looking him up. After working with me, I don't know how long after, he wound up working with some Mexican rock bands like Café Tacuba and some real legendary bands in Mexico. He started doing some Latin stuff, engineering.
You know what, Mark? Don't
producing.
Don't quote me on this. I think that Lambert or somebody had told me that he passed. I'm not really sure. I mean, maybe I hope that's.
Yeah. Well, all I can tell you, I've been looking for him for years and I can't find him. And if he was still in the business, he'd be somewhere online, I think.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be surprised, only because remember how skinny he was? He was skinny. I mean, he didn't look too healthy even then, you know. Yeah. But anyway, another thing about Tony Peluso, he was the lead guitar player for the Carpenters.
Right.
For years.
Exactly.
And Richard Carpenter referred to him as my George Harrison. He played a lot of those records, and he played with Seals and Croft too. Very talented guy, Tony Peluso.
Amazing guitar player.
Yeah,
really was.
So anyway, now you and I wrote 2 really good songs together, and the first one is Next Time. And what happened was you had the title, you had the melody to the verses, and you had some of the lyrics and the idea. And I added to the lyrics on the verses. I contributed to the verses, but I wrote the whole chorus, the words and the music to the bridge. I mean, I wrote the bridge. And to this day, I think it's a great song. And
who was that guy that sang third part on that?
Was there a third part? I sang harmony with you on the bridge.
Yeah, some guy sang.
No, I think it was just you sang the lead, and the bridge had you with me in harmony, 2 of us.
I don't think there was another guy.
I don't remember. Okay, I don't know who it was.
But still, it was a good song. Still is. I have it somewhere.
Well, I have it on MP3 of it, you know.
Oh, you do?
I'll send it to you. Yeah. Anyway, I'll just quickly read the lyrics, what it was about. So it's the idea of the song is, I'm taking my time next time with love because I know just what it can do. One too many heartaches it has put me through. I was a fool to rush to the wink of an eye. Yes, it blinded me so I couldn't see what I was dreaming of. That's why I'm taking my time next time with love. And I'm taking it slow next time I know because I've learned my lesson again. One too many nights I'd sit and wonder when my songs of love might fall on deaf ears. Yes, I jumped right in to a place I've been where push comes to shove. That's why I'm taking my time next time with love. And here's my bridge. Next time I'll be playing it smart. I won't be playing the fool in affairs of the heart. Next time I'll be thinking it through because I'm fed up to here with feeling blue. And then the last verse, I'm taking a chance once more with love because I know just what it can be. Two making one makes a lot of sense to me. I'd be a fool not to rush to the warmth of a heart. Yes, I'll do it again because it fits like a friend or a hand in a glove. Still, I'll be taking my time next time with love. And so anyway, that should have been on your solo album. And to this day, I believe it may not be true, but I think the reason it wasn't on the album was because Dennis Lambert was not too happy because at that time he had heard my song On the Boulevard and he thought it was a hit and he wanted to get the publishing on it. And he said that he was going to have Three Dog Night or Rod Stewart, or no, Three Dog Night possibly recorded. So he wrote up a contract. I sent it to my lawyer who red inked the shit out of it, you know, and sent it back to Dennis. And Dennis got offended that, you know, it was so, the contract was so rejected that the deal fell through. And I think he was kind of pissed about that. And he didn't put our song on there. That's what I think. But, you know, it deserved to be on there, I think.
Yeah, such is life, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. And our other song was Save the Human. And once again, I wrote the bridge, music and lyrics, but you wrote pretty much the rest of the song. But it's all about, you know, giant whales afraid to swim the deep blue sea. Alligators could be a pair of shoes for you and me. In America, the buffalo he hard to see. Acid rain is killing the mighty redwood tree. The question is full of fear. The answer is never clear. What about the human race? With everybody's bombs in every place, we better watch out just what we do because we're endangered species too. And anyway, the bridge that I wrote says, we better put our hearts together soon before the earth begins to resemble the surface of the moon.
Yeah, right.
And it was Calypso style. Very cool. Yeah. And you did a nice recording of it, but it was never released.
Right. Again.
Hooray for Hollywood.
I know, that's it. You know, it doesn't mean that it can't be released.
Yeah, it's still around, man. And
You
by
know,
the way, your album was great. Your album is great. You sang great. The musicians were great. The engineering was great. Everything about it was great. And from what I heard, you didn't get promoted much, if at all, by the company RCA.
Oh yeah, not a bit. Yeah, they were going through all kinds of legal bullshit, RCA, and they were losing all their upper echelon executives. So they literally drew a line of all acts that they're eliminating, and I was under that line. Bam.
I think what I heard, and this is the kind of thing that happens in the music business all the time, is perhaps the guy who signed you, the A&R man who signed you,
right,
got fired. Now the new guy comes in, and he is not going to promote the person that the old A&R man was doing because it would make the old guy look good. So they bring in new bands and they shelve the previous bands. And I heard that's what happened to you.
I'm sure it's a number of different reasons, but and a lot of bands end up, falling under the same, knife. They get cut. That's it.
Yeah. Yep.
Sucks. But it is what it is. What are you going to do?
It's showbiz.
Keep on going on. My thing now is I just want to go and play live and see, write some songs, go on stage, play them, and see if people chew them up or spit them out.
Yeah,
and that's it. You get a real honest opinion about what your material is.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's all I do now. I don't care about anything else.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, and,
The Jack Street album, after that, you did some interesting things. This isn't necessarily in order we're having, it's hard to chronologically.
right,
I think in my
right.
own life, you think of the past and it's hard to figure out what happened first, they're like blocks of memories and it's hard to make them chronological. But you went to Nashville and you
Yeah,
wrote some songs with Bill Como, who was really hot at the time. He had played
right.
keyboards on Betty Davis Eyes. He played keyboard on my song, Pre-Columbian Dream, that Herb Alpert did a version of. He
Wow.
was on that. And Lee Rittenauer and Abe
Yeah,
Laboriel.
he's a pro. In
Yeah.
fact, he wrote that melody on Betty Davis Eyes. That beginning.
Of what?
Beginning.
Oh, Betty Davis Eyes? Betty Davis Eyes?
Beginning melody, he wrote that.
Mhm.
And he also co-wrote "Oh Sherry" for Journey.
Journey? I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
He was
co-wrote
involved in
with her.
that?
Yeah, and he's written for Whitesnake, blah 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 blah. In his studio in Nashville, he's got every freaking gold and platinum record that you can possibly imagine on his wall. He's done a lot. He's a great pro and a great guy. I just was communicating with him today. We've managed to stay good friends, and I was sent there by Jay Warner, who was an incredible publicist here in Los Angeles, that I got a publishing thing because of Angel of the Christmas Trees that I wrote, that they wanted to make a Christmas like a what would you say is a special, a Christmas special. And he sent me down to Nashville to write with Bill and Joey Scott, who we wrote 9 songs for a Christmas album, and that never that fizzled out too. So it's just life, man. And I'm glad to be alive. That's the main thing. At 70, going to be 71 in April. I'm still glad to be alive. Knock on wood.
Yep.
Gotta knock on wood. Right?
That's right, baby. So you wrote you wrote the songs with Bill Como. Were those for the Christmas thing or were they other things?
Yeah.
Oh,
and we also wrote some other stuff just because we loved writing together. So
nice.
we wrote a song called "I Want to Be Like Simon."
Which Simon are you talking about?
Simon Cowell.
Oh no, who would want to be like him?
I want to be like Simon. Yeah, it's a funny song. It's cute, and we wrote "Coffee Make." I want to be I'm your coffee making man. I mean, we wrote some really cool stuff,
Cool.
And again, we stay in communication with each other, and not that I mean, he tells me all the time it's a rough gig out there now, man. But other than that.
So what about the another thing that's interesting is what about the Jerry Goffin sessions?
Yeah.
When did that happen? Do you remember?
It must have been mid 70s. Peter Beckett from Player gave me a call, said that Jerry needed a Rod Stewart like voice because he's trying to pitch a song to Rod Stewart and Tina Turner. So I went in and sang 4 songs that he wrote, and they still, I mean, I don't know, I can't find them anywhere, but man, they were great.
For those who don't know, Jerry Goffin was songwriting partners with Carole King back in the late 50s, early 60s. Goffin and King, they wrote Up on the Roof, Locomotion, all kinds of hits. Take Good Care of My Baby, I think, all those songs. So he's one of the songwriters.
Yeah, that was a great session. It was and John Friesen played drums and on that one, and it was
John Friesen was a drummer for Player, and he played on our version of Next Time.
Yeah,
recorded Next Time. We went into a professional studio, and we had John Friesen on drums, and who was that McDaniel guy?
Dave McDaniels on bass. great
And
bass
then
player.
you had a great piano player on acoustic piano.
Yeah, I don't remember his name, but he ended up
Oh, wait a
playing
minute. I know who it is. It was Gabe Katona.
Gabe Katona. Okay.
Gabe Katona. Yeah,
Yeah.
he played beautifully.
Starship.
And I played acoustic guitar on it.
Yeah.
And you did the vocal, of course. But Gabe Katona, because I met him then, I hired him for a session I did at A&M Studios after that, and he was fantastic. And then I used him on one of my dad's sessions, on one of his
Mm.
children's records. He played unbelievable on that. So, and then he wound up playing in Redbone for a while. I don't know if you know that.
No.
I just found that out.
Yeah, he was a great keyboard player, and they were so spontaneous. And I remember them in that session. Next time they got the chart. They listened to the song one time, and they wrote a chart. They rehearsed it once, and they fucking made a damn the first take, and it was awesome. I mean, that's beautiful studio playing musicians, and it was like that they had played it 1,000 times. And
Yeah, that was my experience when I got to work with Hal Blaine and Joe Osborne of the Wrecking Crew when I was recording for Lou Adler in '71. I played the song for them. They took some notes, one take on both songs. I was stunned because, I'd been used to working with my friends who were great musicians. We might do 10 takes on a basic track or 12 takes.
Right.
To see these guys, one take, perfect, just learned it. It was like my head was spinning. I go, holy shit.
Well, that's what it takes when money's involved.
Yes, you got to have guys that quick.
Yeah, they want to get through it, and because they don't want to continue to spend more money on mistakes.
On studio time and paying musicians overtime.
Right. But
Yeah.
that was great. That was great.
Yeah. And on next time, I was using my dad's old Martin acoustic, that vintage that I still have, and it sounds beautiful to this day.
What year is that? 42?
1941, Martin
41.
D28. Yeah. Memories. Okay, now let's talk about so sometime I'm thinking it was in the 80s, mid 80s somewhere. You, Rick Chavez, who we've been talking about, and I had a little trio, and we did a gig at this club in La Crescenta in the foothills of Los Angeles. We didn't even have a name for the band, I don't think.
No.
And I was playing bass. So I'm on bass, you're on drums, Rick Chavez is on guitar. And we played for a couple of weeks at this club. And it was fun, wasn't it?
Yeah. And the number one request was Elvira.
Oh, no.
By who was the group that sang
that Nashville group, the four singers.
Bellamy Brothers, something like that?
No. I'll think of it. But everybody knows Elvira.
Elvira.
Yeah. But we also did some kick-ass rock songs, of course.
Oh, yeah. We played blues, we played everything. We just, whatever they requested, you guys were able to play it on your instruments. And I tagged along because, the drumming is, I remember we played, it must have been a Jimi Hendrix song too. I mean, it must have been because, there was just a lot of fun, just spontaneous stuff.
We never rehearsed.
Yeah. And I absolutely, I would rather that happen. It's just not rehearse, just go in and play. You get the best shit happens when you're not so regimented,
Right. Well, one memory I mentioned to you yesterday was the owner of the club was kind of a mafioso type of guy. I'm not saying he was in the mob, but he was one of those kind of guys. And he had this girlfriend, and he hired us to back her up on a recording. And he took us to Gold Star Studios, the legendary Gold Star where Phil Spector used to record and the Beach Boys. And we went in there, and she was not good. But we, being mercenary musicians, happily went and played and collected the check, But
that's it.
It was kind of horrific, as I recall.
Of course.
Oh my God.
That's the epitome of mercenary.
That's right.
Being a musician, you have to listen to that you don't really like it, but you're just doing it just to get your money and leave.
Absolutely. I got to pay the rent. Um, did you want to say anything about the Pigeon Trainers EP or?
Well, the Pigeon Trainers was a band with Frank Demme, Bruce Wallenstein, and myself, and oh God, who was Frank Demme? Oh, Frank Demme, and Bruce, myself, and God. Anyway, but it was a great band, and it was all of these rock and roll songs. I actually I was when I went to Hawaii to play with Bones in '89. I was just there, and I wrote all these actually 4 songs, and brought them back. We recorded them and brought them to Dennis Lambert. Dennis said it was the best thing he's heard in a long time, and he tried to get us a record deal with I don't know what record label, but no one was signing these unknown groups with weird names.
What do you remember? What decade the Pigeon Trainers was in?
Yeah, it was. It had to be the end of the '80s and the beginning of the '90s.
All right.
Had to be. Because at that point, I went to, in '92, I went to Colorado to start my business out there. So,
which we'll get into too. But hey, one more thing. I'm glad I saw this in my notes. We got to talk about the movie you were in. Body Slam, 1987, and you had lines. Yeah. And tell me how that all happened and what about it. Tell me.
Paul Palmer had an opportunity for me to be in a movie, and I needed to play a musician in the movie, and needed to I guess we had to write one song, and Dennis, I, and Peter Beckett wrote a song called oh God, Rock and Roll Heart. And so we wrote a song, and it got in the movie, and I played a bass player in the movie. And Hal Blaine from Smokey and the Bandit, director of Smokey and the Bandit.
Oh, yeah, no, it wasn't Hal Blaine. Hal Blaine is a drummer. I know who you're talking about.
Hal Needham.
Hal Needham.
He directed the movie, and we went to I don't know, upper Northern California to film the movie. And who was the guy that who was the guy that Cyndi Lauper's manager? Remember him?
Oh yeah, was that Lou Albano, the wrestler? The wrestler.
Yeah. Lou Albano was in it, and Rowdy Piper, and
all these wrestlers. What was the idea? What was the theme of the movie? What was this
rock and roll and music? Rock and roll and music.
Yeah, but rock and roll and wrestling.
That's what it was, and that was the whole theme of the movie: rock and roll and wrestling.
Probably some silly little plot.
Totally silly, and a face from the A-Team. Remember him? He was the main character. He was our manager in the movie. Can't remember what his name is, but yeah, he was our manager in the movie, as the character. And I had a few lines, and it was fun. Bruce, who ended up in the Rockaholics, he was in the movie with us as a guitar player too. So, and it still plays. It still plays. Really? Every once in a while, my friends call me and say, "Hey, I saw that movie again."
Like on Netflix or some streaming service.
Usually on Stars or on HBO or Showtime.
Wow. I think I have a copy of that on VHS somewhere. I also have a copy of that showcase you did that yesterday. When I talked to you, you forgot about it. You did a showcase at the Hollywood Palladium, and that's what you forgot. It was the Hollywood Palladium. And it was like during the day, or it might have been the evening, but it was it wasn't an event. It was not a public event. It was I guess the venue was hired for the
Ah,
showcase, and you were the front man of
right.
this great band, and it was
Burlesque.
sometime in the
Burlesque
80s, and I was
playing.
there, and I have that on tape. I don't know, did I ever send that to you? I have that somewhere.
You have it?
I have it.
Well, how would you send it?
I could Dropbox it to you, email it to you through Dropbox, or I could even maybe burn it on a DVD and mail it to you. Either way.
Dropbox it. I don't
Yeah,
know.
you just there are these services like WeTransfer where you can send big files like a movie through email.
Oh.
You click on the link and you download it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, one way or another. I got to find it first.
Sure.
But yeah, all that stuff, man, incredible.
Excellent.
So at some point you became a tattoo artist, and you have a lot of tattoos, obviously.
Yeah, I well, I was just, I had to make a living of some kind, so I met my wonderful girlfriend at the time, and she loaned me some money, being the punk that I was. She loaned me some money, and I got a book called A to Z on tattooing, and I read it from cover to cover 1,000 times, and I went and bought some equipment, and I started tattooing myself, tattooed her, a bunch of friends, and then I said, let's go and open a business. And then we went all the way to Colorado from California, and Colorado Springs. We picked Colorado Springs because of the military there, and opening up a shop. And within the first couple of years, became the #1 shop in town. And at some point, God love us, making $500,000 a year. And I regret ever leaving it, but you gotta move on in life,
Yeah. But you you are a really good artist. So you didn't just know, you had to learn the technical aspects of it, but you were a great artist already. So you could do some incredible imagery. And you also do really great caricatures, and you've done that. You've done caricatures for people, and you get paid to do caricatures. You did one of me too. It's kind of interesting. But no, you're a great artist, so it translated to your tattooing.
Yeah, it was a good time, and it was somewhat of a frivolous time too. I mean, when you make that kind of money, you end up. If I never had any money, so then once I had it, I went berserk, and I regret that too to this day.
Yeah.
But again, time
live and learn.
Live and learn. Time marches on,
Yeah.
and you definitely, that's the word, live and those are the words, live and learn.
Mm-hmm.
And especially nowadays, where especially now, it's a very tumultuous time. So
yes,
but you hold on to your money.
Yes. One thing I didn't mention is didn't you do a little thing tour with Jackie Wilson or something? Tell me about that.
Yeah, and I don't know if that was the Runabouts or the Midnighters, but all I know is that I had the opportunity of being the nucleus band for Jackie Wilson, and played his songs, and same thing with the Shirelles, all the old rock and roll band, the rock and roll show. This was Jackie Wilson, and he was the real Jackie Wilson.
And you were playing the drums behind Jackie Wilson.
And that was an incredible experience. Shreveport, some Texas gigs, Louisiana. It was really, really fun gig, man. Talk about living an experience. All these different types of songs that they're embedded in me for the rest of my life now. I can get up on stage with anybody and just play whatever. Doesn't matter what it is. You just got to listen, and that's what it taught me, is to listen, and that's what's important. You just don't start playing. You listen to the band. So, yeah. But that was a fun gig, definitely.
So when you look at the whole panorama, It's like, and I include myself as you and I, we've had very interesting musical journeys,
Yeah.
been incredible places, played with incredible people. And I treasure these, the memories and everything that we got to do. And I feel very blessed to have, had the journey. And I'm sure you feel that way too.
Yeah. And, it's something that I'll be close to my heart forever, and you being, you, Anthony, God, Frank, Carl, uh, musicians that I played with for many years are still here. God bless us all, and my friend Tony in Preston, California, has got a beautiful studio that I used to be able to go there when I lived closer, and we just have fun and play. But all these people that are still in my life, it's very rewarding, and I appreciate it, and I thank you, Mark, for still being, still talking to me.
I think we covered everything. So what would you say? Like, just think about your memories of growing up in East Los Angeles, and what are your feelings about it, and what are your feelings about playing the circuit and being part of it? What does it mean to you, and how do you look upon it now?
It was a great time. Again, that experience of just being spontaneous and being able to play and people liking what you're playing and asking you to join their band because of your ability to listen and just play, and a good hard rock, solid meat and potatoes drummer. And on the boulevard, just, cruising down Whittier Boulevard. And, Bobby Torres used to own a movie theater on Whittier Boulevard. I used to work for him there. Just a lot of great experiences. Mexican food there on every corner, the best Mexican food. Just playing all these great places was such an incredible experience. And, I'm so glad that I'm so glad that I still have it in my memory, because it was a great time. And, the Midnighters, that was a great band. It was just great being around those people, and yeah.
What was it like, just being an Italian American, being amongst all these Chicanos? I mean, the majority of the musicians were Chicanos, not all, obviously. But I mean, how did you assimilate into Chicano culture, and how did they get into you?
I only got my ass kicked once in a while. That was it.
In school?
Yeah, because of being a musician, uh, having good hair,
But what were the positive things about assimilating Chicano culture? Were there any besides the food? Well, you certainly fit in eventually, or you
Yeah,
wouldn't know
I mean,
that.
I looked, I'm very ethnic looking, so no one ever asked me what if you're Italian or Mexican,
Mhm.
But I had all my friends they're all Spanish American, and very. I don't even know if I had one Italian friend other than my brother. But yeah, even Rick Chavez, he's a Spanish guy, But no, it was a great experience, even in high school and grammar school. All of it was just wonderful.
Right. Now, when you say Spanish, you mean Mexican, because Spanish is Spain,
Right, right. Yeah, Mexican American.
Yes. Or
Yeah.
Chicano.
Chicanos.
So cool, man. I think we did it, Jack. I think we did.
And we did it. I said, let's try on my phone.
But I was trying to avoid it because it's a
Small.
narrower picture, but you turn the phone on its side and it's much better.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So now you're a much bigger image. It's true. That was why I was reluctant at first. But yeah, we went through hell trying to get this thing to hook up
that
because
computer.
you didn't have a good
That computer. I won't do that again. Next time we communicate,
next
we can
time.
do this. Next time.
So thanks, Jack, for doing this. It was great talking to you and getting you as
Great,
part of
Mark.
this oral history, man. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Talk to you soon.
I bet.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.